The clock on the hospital wall showed 11:47 p.m. when Rebecca finally peeled off her scrubs and collapsed onto the bench in the staff locker room. Her feet were screaming. 16 hours. That's how long she'd been on her feet, running from one emergency to another. A car accident victim, a kid with a broken arm, an elderly man having a heart attack. Just another Thursday night in the ER. She grabbed her phone from her locker and saw 3 missed calls from her babysitter. Her heart jumped into her throat. She quickly called back. "Everything okay with Tommy?" Rebecca asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "Oh yeah, he's fine," Mrs. Patterson said with a light chuckle. "He's been asleep since 8:30. I just wanted to let you know he got an A on his math test. He was so excited to tell you, but he couldn't keep his eyes open." Rebecca felt her shoulders drop with relief.
Thank you so much for staying late again.
"I'll be home in 20 minutes. After hanging up, she sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. This was her life now. Working double shifts just to keep the lights on and food on the table. Relying on the kindness of a 60-year-old neighbor who charged way less than she should for babysitting. Coming home to a sleeping child and missing all the little moments that mattered. But Tommy was healthy. Tommy was happy. Tommy was doing well in school despite everything they'd been through. That's what counted. Rebecca pulled out her phone again and opened her messages. Her sister Amy had just changed her number last week after some guy from her gym wouldn't stop calling her. What was it again? She scrolled through her contacts and found the new number Amy had texted her. Without thinking too much, Rebecca's thumbs started flying across the screen. She needed to vent to someone who understood. Another brutal shift. My feet might actually fall off. But guess what? Tommy got an A on his math test. Straight A's this semester despite everything. I'm so proud of him I could cry. Sometimes I worry I'm failing him, you know? Working all the time, never home for dinner, missing his soccer games. But then he does stuff like this, and I think maybe we're going to be okay. Maybe I'm not completely screwing this up. She attached a photo she'd taken last week of Tommy holding up his report card, grinning from ear to ear with that gap-toothed smile. 8 years old and already braver than she'd ever been. Rebecca hit send and dragged herself up from the bench. Time to go home, kiss her sleeping boy on the forehead, and do it all over again tomorrow. She was halfway to her car when her phone buzzed. "I think you have the wrong number." Rebecca stopped walking and stared at the screen. "What?" She quickly scrolled up and looked at the number she'd sent the message to. Her stomach dropped. The last 4 digits were 7823, not 7832. She'd transposed the numbers. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She typed back quickly. "I meant to text my sister. Please just delete that. So embarrassing." She shoved her phone in her pocket and got into her beat-up Honda Civic, her face burning. Great. Just great. Some random stranger now had a photo of her kid and knew way too much about her personal life. Could this day get any worse? 300 miles away in San Francisco, David Chen sat in his penthouse office, staring at his phone with an expression that hadn't crossed his face in years. Curiosity, maybe even something softer than that. He'd changed his phone number 3 weeks ago, desperate for some peace. When you're worth several $1 billion, everyone wants a piece of you. Investors, reporters, old friends who suddenly remembered you existed. People selling everything from private islands to revolutionary tech that would definitely change the world this time. Promise. The new number was supposed to be his secret. Only his assistant and his lawyer had it. No one else. Finally, some silence. Then tonight, this message had come through. An exhausted mother, proud of her son, worried she wasn't enough. And a photo of a kid with straight A's on his report card. David had almost deleted it immediately. Wrong numbers happened, but something made him pause. He zoomed in on the photo. The kid was maybe 8 or 9, wearing a blue t-shirt, holding up that report card like it was a trophy. Brown hair that stuck up a little in the front. A smile that lit up his whole face. And eyes that looked eerily familiar. David shook his head. He was being ridiculous. He was tired. It had been a long day of back-to-back meetings. He was seeing things that weren't there, but he couldn't stop looking at the photo. The mom had apologized and asked him to delete it. He should do exactly that, but his thumb hovered over the screen, not pressing delete. Instead, he found himself typing back. "No worries. Congratulations to your son. Straight A's is impressive. Why did he send that? He never engaged with strangers. Never. This was exactly why he'd changed his number in the first place. But something about that message had gotten under his skin. The raw honesty of it, the worry of a parent trying their best. The pride mixed with fear. His phone buzzed again. Thank you. That's really kind. And sorry again for the random life dump. You definitely didn't need to hear about my foot pain and parenting anxiety. David smiled slightly. Everyone needs to vent sometimes. Sounds like you're doing a great job. The kid is obviously thriving. He waited for a response, but none came. The woman had probably realized she was texting a stranger and wisely decided to stop. Smart. David set his phone down and walked to the floor-to-ceiling. Windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay, the city lights sparkled below him. Somewhere out there, a single mom was driving home from a 16-hour shift to kiss her sleeping kid goodnight. Meanwhile, he was standing in a penthouse that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Alone except for the ghost of a memory he couldn't quite place. He pulled out his phone again and looked at the photo one more time. Really looked at it. That kid's eyes. The shape of his face. The way he smiled. David walked to his desk and unlocked the bottom drawer where he kept the one personal item in his entire office. A small photo album from his college days, before the company, before the money, before everything changed. He flipped through the pages until he found what he was looking for. A photo from 25 years ago, University of Texas at Austin. He was 20 years old, skinny, wearing a burnt orange Longhorns t-shirt, with his arm around a girl with long dark hair and a smile that could stop traffic. His college girlfriend. The one he'd left behind when he dropped out to chase his startup dreams in Silicon Valley. The one who'd tried to call him a dozen times that first year. But he'd been too busy, too focused, too consumed with building his empire to call her back. By the time he'd thought to reach out, her number didn't work anymore. He'd told himself she'd moved on. That it was for the best. He'd never known her last name. They'd only dated for 6 months. She was a nursing student. She had a younger sister she was putting through school. David looked at his younger self in the photo. Then he looked at the boy on his phone screen. The resemblance wasn't just familiar. It was impossible to ignore. His hands started shaking slightly as he pulled up his contacts and called the one person he trusted completely. "Robert," he said when his lawyer answered. "I need you to do something for me tonight. I need you to find someone." Robert Martinez had been David Chen's attorney for 15 years. In that time, he'd handled billion-dollar acquisitions, patent disputes, and more NDAs than he could count. But he'd never heard his client sound like this, shaken, almost afraid. "What exactly am I looking for?" Robert asked, already opening his laptop. "A woman. She would be around my age, maybe a year younger. She was a nursing student at UT Austin in 2000. Dark hair. She had a younger sister she was helping raise." David paused. "Her first name was Jennifer. I don't know her last name." "I never knew it." Robert didn't ask why. He'd learned long ago that David didn't make frivolous requests. "That's not much to go on, but I'll see what I can do." "Can you give me a day or two?" "You have 12 hours, David said. "And Robert?" "This is personal, not business. Keep it quiet." After hanging up, David couldn't sleep. He paced his penthouse, looking at that photo over and over again. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was seeing connections that weren't there because he was lonely or nostalgic or having some kind of midlife crisis at 45. But deep in his gut, he knew. He just knew. By morning, Robert called back. "I found her," he said, his voice careful. "Jennifer Rodriguez." She graduated from UT's nursing program in 2001. She worked at Dell Children's Medical Center in Austin for 6 years. "Can you set up a meeting? I need to talk to her." There was a long pause. "David, she passed away 9 years ago. Car accident on I-35. David felt like someone had punched him in the chest. He sat down hard on his couch. "What? I'm sorry. But there's more. Jennifer had a son. He was born in March 2001, 9 months after you left Austin." Robert let that sink in. The boy's birth certificate lists the father as unknown. David's mouth went dry. "Where is he now?" "The boy? He was 1 when Jennifer died. Her younger sister adopted him. Her name is Rebecca Rodriguez. She's a nurse at St. David's Medical Center in Austin, single. No other kids. She's been raising him alone for 8 years. Rebecca, the woman who'd sent him that text by mistake. The woman with the tired voice and the proud smile for her son who got straight A's. "I need you to arrange a DNA test," David said quietly. "David, are you sure about this?" If this is your son, everything changes. The media will have a field day. There could be custody issues, financial implications. I don't care about any of that. If that boy is mine, if Jennifer tried to tell me and I was too busy to listen, then I've already missed 8 years of his life. I need to know, Robert sighed. I'll reach out to Rebecca. But David? This is going to be complicated. That was an understatement. Rebecca was in the middle of helping Tommy with his homework when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Rebecca Rodriguez? A professional male voice asked. Yes, who's calling? My name is Robert Martinez. I'm an attorney representing a client who believes he may have important information about your sister, Jennifer. Rebecca's hand tightened on the phone. Nobody had mentioned her sister in years. What kind of information? I'd rather discuss this in person. Are you available to meet tomorrow? My client is willing to come to Austin. This is regarding your nephew. Tommy? What about Tommy? Rebecca's voice rose. She walked into the kitchen so Tommy wouldn't hear. Is someone trying to take him away? Because I adopted him legally. I have papers. He's my son. Nobody's trying to take him away, Robert said calmly. My client believes he may be Tommy's biological father. He never knew Jennifer was pregnant. He'd like to meet with you to explain everything. Rebecca felt dizzy. She leaned against the kitchen counter. That's impossible. Jennifer never told me who Tommy's father was. She said he wasn't in the picture and never would be. That may have been true at the time, but circumstances have changed. Would you be willing to meet? Just to talk? Every instinct told Rebecca to say no, to hang up and pretend this call never happened. Tommy was hers. She'd raised him from a baby. She'd been the one who walked the floor with him at night when he had colic. She taught him to tie his shoes. She kissed his scraped knees and helped him with his spelling words. But she also remembered Jennifer's tears in those last few months of her pregnancy. How she'd tried calling someone over and over again. How she'd finally given up and said, he made his choice. We'll make ours. Who is he? Rebecca asked. This client of yours? I think that's something he should tell you himself. Can we meet tomorrow? 2 o'clock at the coffee shop on 6th Street? The one near the hospital? Rebecca closed her eyes. Fine, but I'm not promising anything. The next day, Rebecca got Mrs. Patterson to watch Tommy after school. She told him she had a meeting about work stuff. Not technically a lie, but not the truth either. She got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early and ordered a tea she was too nervous to drink. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened and a man walked in. He was tall, wearing an expensive-looking suit but no tie. Dark hair with a little gray at the temples. He looked around the coffee shop until his eyes landed on her. Rebecca knew who he was immediately. She'd seen his face on magazine covers in the grocery store checkout line. David Chen, tech billionaire, one of the richest people in America. This had to be a joke. But the man walking toward her table didn't look like he was joking. He looked nervous, almost scared. Rebecca? He asked softly. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He sat down across from her, and another man in a suit took a seat at a nearby table. The lawyer, she guessed. Thank you for meeting me, David said. I know this must be confusing, you think? Rebecca's voice came out sharper than she intended. I accidentally texted you a few days ago, and now you're telling me you might be Tommy's father? How does that even make sense? David pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. A young man with his arm around a young woman. The man was clearly David, 25 years younger. The woman was Jennifer. Rebecca's breath caught. She'd seen photos of her sister at that age, but never this one. Jennifer looked so happy, so in love. We dated for 6 months in 2000, David said quietly. I was a junior at UT. She was a sophomore. When I dropped out to move to Silicon Valley to start my company, we broke up. She tried to call me after I left a lot, but I changed my number because I was getting constant calls from investors and reporters. I was 20 years old and stupid and thought I was going to change the world. He looked down at his hands. I never called her back. I told myself she'd moved on, that it didn't matter. She was pregnant, Rebecca said, her voice hollow. She found out a month after you left. She tried to tell you. David's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like he might cry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known, I would have been there. I would have done something. Would you? Or would your company have been more important? The words came out bitter. Rebecca had spent 9 years being angry at the nameless man who'd abandoned her sister. I'd like to think I would have made the right choice. But honestly, I don't know. I was young and ambitious and selfish. David met her eyes. But I'm here now. And if Tommy is my son, I want to be part of his life. Not to take him from you. Not to disrupt what you've built. But to be his father, if you'll let me. Rebecca stared at this man who had everything. Money, success, power. And he was sitting across from her, asking permission to know his own child. You want a DNA test? She said. It wasn't a question. Yes, just to be certain. But Rebecca, I looked at that photo you sent me. I looked at Tommy's face. And then I looked at pictures of myself at that age. He pulled up another photo on his phone. David as a kid, maybe 9 years old. Same brown hair that stuck up in front. Same smile. Same eyes. The resemblance was impossible to deny. If the test confirms it, Rebecca said slowly, if you really are his father, you don't just get to walk in and out whenever it's convenient. Tommy's been through enough. He lost his mom. I won't let him lose anyone else. I understand. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. Rebecca wanted to believe him, but she'd learned the hard way that promises from men like him meant nothing. One step at a time, she said. First the test. Then we'll see. The DNA test came back 3 days later. David was in a meeting with his board of directors when Robert called. He excused himself and walked out into the hallway, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. It's a match, Robert said simply. 99.9% certainty. Tommy is your son. David leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. He had a son. An 8-year-old boy who loved math and soccer and getting straight A's. A boy who'd grown up without him. A boy he'd missed everything for. First steps. First words. First day of school. All of it gone. David? You still there? Yeah, I'm here. David's voice was rough. Has Rebecca been told? She's being notified now. What do you want to do? What did he want to do? He wanted to get on a plane to Austin right now. He wanted to meet his son. He wanted 8 years back. But he knew it wasn't that simple. Set up another meeting with Rebecca. Let her take the lead on this. I'm not going to push. But when Rebecca called him that evening, her voice was cold. So it's true. You're his father. Yes, and now what? You want to meet him? You want to tell an 8-year-old boy that his whole life has been a lie? That's not what I want at all, David said carefully. Rebecca, I know you don't trust me, I get it. But I'm not trying to take him away from you. You're his mom in every way that matters. I just want a chance to be part of his life too. How? You live in San Francisco. You run a billion-dollar company. You're not going to have time for soccer games and parent-teacher conferences. Then I'll make time. I'll move to Austin if I have to. Rebecca laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. You're going to give up your fancy penthouse and your company headquarters for a kid you just found out about? Yes, David said, and he meant it. If that's what it takes. There was a long silence. Finally, Rebecca spoke, her voice softer. I need time to think about this. To figure out how to tell Tommy. He's been asking questions lately about his dad. About why he doesn't have one like the other kids at school. What do you tell him? The truth. That his mom loved him very much and that sometimes families look different and that's okay. She paused. I never badmouthed you. I didn't even know who you were to badmouth. I just told him his father wasn't around, but that it didn't mean anything was wrong with him. David felt a wave of gratitude toward this woman who'd protected his son even from a ghost. You did an amazing job with him, Rebecca. That's clear from everything I've seen. Don't try to butter me up. I'm still deciding if I'm going to let you anywhere near him. Fair enough. Take your time. I'll wait. 2 weeks went by. David called Robert every day asking if Rebecca had reached out. She hadn't. He considered just showing up in Austin, but Robert strongly advised against it. So David waited, which was something he wasn't good at. Then on a Tuesday morning, his phone rang. Rebecca's number. Okay, she said without preamble. Here's the deal. You want to be in Tommy's life? Fine, but you're going to do it my way. I'm listening. You're going to come to Austin, not to some fancy hotel. You're going to rent an apartment in a normal neighborhood, and you're going to prove to me that you're serious about this before I tell Tommy who you are. What do you mean? I mean you're going to be around. You're going to show up. Tommy's school is looking for volunteers for the after-school reading program. You're going to volunteer. His soccer team needs an assistant coach. You're going to help coach. You're going to be present in his life as just some guy who's helping out, and I'm going to watch you. If you can do that for 3 months without disappearing back to San Francisco, then we'll talk about telling him the truth. David felt hope bloom in his chest. I can do that. And David? No gifts, no showing off, no hint of how much money you have. I don't want Tommy getting attached to what you can buy him. I want to know if you can just be there for him. Can you do that? Yes, absolutely, yes. Then I'll see you next week. There's an apartment building on Riverside Drive. Unit 4B just opened up. It's nothing fancy. 600 square feet, 1 bedroom. But it's 2 blocks from Tommy's school. David almost laughed. He owned homes that had bedrooms bigger than that. But he didn't say that. Sounds perfect. I'll take it. 1 week later, David Chen walked into the smallest apartment he'd lived in since college. The kitchen was barely big enough to turn around in. The bathroom had outdated tile. The air conditioner made a weird rattling sound. He loved it. That Saturday, he showed up at Tommy's soccer practice. Rebecca was there, sitting in the bleachers with a travel mug of coffee, watching her son run drills. She saw David and gave him a small nod. David walked over to the coach, a tired-looking man in his 50s. Hey, I heard you might need some help with the team. The coach looked him up and down. You know anything about soccer? Played in college. Haven't coached kids before, but I'm willing to learn. You're hired. I'm Coach Williams. Practice is Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4, games on Saturdays. Can you commit to that? Absolutely. That's how David found himself running drills with a group of 8 and 9-year-olds. Tommy was one of the smaller kids on the team, but he was fast and had good instincts. He listened when David showed him how to improve his footwork. He grinned when David praised his effort. He had no idea this stranger was his father. After practice, Tommy ran over to Rebecca. Mom, did you see? Coach David said I'm getting really good. I saw, baby. You were great out there. Tommy looked up at David shyly. Are you going to be at practice on Tuesday? Wouldn't miss it, David said, his throat tight. Over the next few weeks, David settled into a routine he'd never imagined for himself. He woke up early to work remotely with his team in San Francisco. Then at 3:30, he'd head to Tommy's school for the reading program, where he helped 2nd and 3rd graders sound out words and get excited about books. Tommy was always in the group, and David got to hear him read with pride in his voice. After that came soccer practice. David learned all the kids' names. He brought orange slices for halftime. He stayed late to help Coach Williams pack up the equipment. In the evenings, he'd grab dinner at the taco truck on the corner or make spaghetti in his tiny kitchen. He'd video call with his executive team and make decisions about his company from a fold-out table instead of a glass conference room, and it was the happiest he'd been in years. Rebecca watched all of this with cautious eyes. She'd see David at practice, always early, always engaged with the kids. She'd hear the teachers at school mention how great the new volunteer was. Tommy would come home talking about Coach David this and Coach David that. One evening, 6 weeks into the arrangement, Rebecca called David. Tommy's birthday is coming up, she said. He's turning 9. He wants to have a party at the park. Just some kids from school and the soccer team. Pizza and cake, nothing fancy. Sounds great. Do you need help setting up? Actually, I was calling to invite you. As a guest. Tommy specifically asked if Coach David could come. David felt his eyes sting. I'd love to. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This doesn't mean I've made a decision about telling him. But you've shown up, David, every single day for 6 weeks. That counts for something. On the day of Tommy's birthday party, David showed up with a simple wrapped present. A new soccer ball with all the kids' signatures on it that he'd gotten from the team. Nothing expensive. Nothing flashy. Tommy's face lit up when he saw it.
This is so cool.
Thanks, Coach David. David watched Tommy run around with his friends, laughing and happy. Rebecca came to stand beside him. He's a good kid, David said quietly. The best, Rebecca agreed. She was quiet for a moment. My sister would have liked you. The version of you that exists right now, I mean. Not the 20-year-old who was too busy for her calls. I wish I could go back and change that. You can't, none of us can. But maybe you can make up for it going forward. Rebecca turned to look at him. He asks about you, you know. Who you are, why you're always around. I think he suspects something. What do you tell him? That you're a friend. Someone who cares about him. She paused. Is that true, David? Do you care about him? Or is this some kind of guilt project that you'll get tired of? David looked at the boy, his son, covered in birthday cake and pure joy. I care about him more than I thought it was possible to care about anything. And I'm not going anywhere. Not ever. Rebecca studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Then maybe it's time we told him the truth. Rebecca and David agreed to tell Tommy the truth on Sunday afternoon. They planned it carefully. Rebecca would make his favorite lunch. Then they'd sit down together and explain everything gently. David had barely slept for 2 nights thinking about what he'd say, but life had other plans. It was Thursday. Tommy had soccer practice after school like always. David was running drills with the kids, showing them how to pass more accurately. Tommy was having a great day, making goal after goal, laughing with his teammates. Then suddenly Tommy stopped running. He bent over holding his stomach. Coach David. Tommy's voice was small. My tummy really hurts. David jogged over. What kind of hurt? Like you ate too much at lunch? No, it's sharp. Like someone's poking me. Tommy's face was pale now, sweat beading on his forehead even though he hadn't been running that hard. David's instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. Come sit down, buddy. He called over to Coach Williams. I'm taking Tommy to get checked out. He pulled out his phone and called Rebecca. She was at work, still had 3 hours left on her shift. David, is everything okay? Tommy's complaining of stomach pain. It came on pretty suddenly. I'm taking him to the ER just to be safe. I'm coming right now. Which hospital? St. David's, where you work. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She hung up. David helped Tommy to his car. The boy was quiet now, which scared David more than if he'd been crying. Tommy curled up in the passenger seat, still holding his stomach. It's going to be okay, David said, driving faster than he should. Your mom works at this hospital. They're going to take great care of you. By the time they got to the emergency room, Tommy's pain had gotten worse. He was crying now, saying it hurt to move. Rebecca met them at the entrance, still in her scrubs. Her face went white when she saw Tommy. Baby, what's wrong? It hurts, Mom. It hurts so bad. Rebecca scooped him up like he weighed nothing and rushed him inside. David followed, his heart pounding. He'd never felt this kind of fear before. Not when his company almost went bankrupt in the early days. Not when he gave presentations to thousands of people. Nothing compared to watching his son in pain. The ER doctor examined Tommy quickly. Rebecca stood right there, holding Tommy's hand, her nurse training warring with her mom panic. David stood back, feeling helpless. We need to run some tests, the doctor said. Could be appendicitis. We need a CT scan right away. Everything moved fast after that. Tommy was wheeled away for the scan while Rebecca and David waited in a small room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Rebecca paced back and forth. David sat with his head in his hands. This is my fault, Rebecca said suddenly. He said his stomach hurt a little yesterday. I gave him antacids and told him it was probably just something he ate. I should have known. You couldn't have known. Kids get stomach aches all the time. I'm a nurse, David. I should have known. Before David could respond, the doctor came back in. His face was serious. It's his appendix. It's ruptured. We need to get him into surgery immediately. Rebecca swayed like she might fall. David caught her arm. What does that mean? He asked. It means infection has spread into his abdomen. We need to operate now to clean it out and remove the appendix. It's serious, but we've caught it in time. How long will the surgery take? Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Could be several hours, depending on what we find. He's strong, Rebecca. He's going to be okay. They let Rebecca and David see Tommy before they took him to surgery. He looked so small on that hospital bed, an IV in his arm, scared but trying to be brave. Mom, am I going to die? Tommy asked, tears rolling down his cheeks. No, baby, no, you're going to be just fine. The doctors are going to fix you right up, and when you wake up, I'll be right there. I promise. Tommy looked at David. Coach David, will you stay too? David's throat was so tight he could barely speak. I'm not going anywhere, champ. I promise. They wheeled Tommy away. Rebecca collapsed into a chair and started crying. David sat beside her, not sure if he should touch her or give her space. I can't lose him, Rebecca sobbed. He's all I have. He's everything. David put his arm around her shoulders and she didn't pull away. You're not going to lose him. He's strong. He's a fighter, just like his mom. An hour into the surgery, the surgeon came out. We have a complication. Tommy needs blood. His type is AB negative. It's rare. Our blood bank only has 1 unit and we need at least 3 for a surgery this complex. I'm O positive, Rebecca said desperately. Can you use mine? No, I'm sorry. O positive can't donate to AB negative. We're calling other hospitals, but it might take time we don't have. David stood up. I'm AB negative. Test me. Take whatever you need. The surgeon looked surprised. Are you sure? Test me right now. 10 minutes later, they confirmed it. David was a match. They took him to a room and stuck a needle in his arm. He watched his blood flow through a tube, knowing it was going to his son. The son he'd just found. The son he couldn't lose. You're AB negative, Rebecca said quietly. She'd followed him to the donation room. Tommy got that from you. It's so rare. Only 2% of people have it. Guess it's good for something, David said. He felt dizzy, but he didn't care. Why are you doing this? Rebecca asked. The truth. Why are you really here? David looked at her. This woman who'd given up everything for his child. Because 3 months ago, I was a guy who had everything and nothing at the same time. Money, success, a company worth billions. But I was alone. I went to bed alone, woke up alone, and the only thing anyone wanted from me was my money or my connections. Then I got a text message by mistake. A picture of a kid with straight A's and a mom who was proud and tired and doing her best, and something woke up inside me that I didn't even know was asleep. He paused, watching his blood drain into the bag. Then I found out that kid was mine. That somewhere out there I had a son, a family, a chance to be something more than just a rich guy in a tower, and I know I don't deserve this chance. I know I abandoned Jennifer even if I didn't know she was pregnant. I know I've missed 8 years of Tommy's life. But Rebecca, that boy in there is the best thing I've ever been part of creating. Better than any company or app or innovation. And I'll give every drop of blood in my body to make sure he's okay. Rebecca wiped her eyes. Jennifer would have told you, you know. If she could have reached you. She tried so hard. She wanted you to know. I know. And I have to live with that. But right now, all that matters is Tommy. The surgery took 6 hours. David and Rebecca sat together in the waiting room, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in silence. Other parents came and went. Coffee was consumed. The sun set outside the windows. Finally, the surgeon came out looking exhausted but smiling. He's okay. The surgery went well. We got all the infection cleaned out. He's going to need to stay in the hospital for at least a week, maybe longer, but he's going to be fine. Rebecca burst into tears again, but this time from relief. David felt his whole body relax. Muscles he didn't know he'd been tensing finally letting go. Can we see him? Rebecca asked. He's in recovery. Still sedated, but you can sit with him. They followed the surgeon to Tommy's room. He looked so pale against the white sheets, tubes, and monitors attached to him, but his chest was rising and falling steadily. He was alive. He was going to be okay. Rebecca sat on one side of the bed, holding Tommy's hand. David stood on the other side, not sure if he had the right to touch him. Sit down, Rebecca said softly. He'd want you here. David sat. He reached out and gently touched Tommy's hair, so soft under his fingers. Thank you, Rebecca whispered. For the blood. For being here. For everything. He's my son, David said simply. There's nowhere else I'd be. They sat like that for hours, watching Tommy sleep, watching him heal. Somewhere around midnight, Tommy's eyes fluttered open. He looked confused at first, then saw Rebecca. Mom, I'm right here, baby. You did so good. You're going to be fine. Tommy's eyes shifted and found David. You stayed. I told you I would. Tommy smiled weakly, then drifted back to sleep. Rebecca looked at David across Tommy's bed. We should tell him. When he's stronger, he deserves to know the truth. David nodded, not trusting himself to speak, because in that moment, sitting in a hospital room at midnight, watching his son breathe, he realized something. He'd spent his whole life chasing success and building empires. But this right here, this was the only thing that really mattered. Family, love, being there when someone needed you. Everything else was just noise. Tommy spent a week in the hospital. The infection was worse than the doctors initially thought, and his recovery was slower than anyone wanted. He needed strong antibiotics through an IV. He couldn't eat solid food for days. He had a drain tube that had to stay in for almost a week. But the hardest part wasn't physical. It was the fear in his eyes every time a nurse came in to check his vitals or change his bandages. He was scared in a way that broke Rebecca's heart. David was there every single day. He'd show up in the morning before Rebecca's shift started, bringing her coffee and a breakfast sandwich. He'd sit with Tommy, reading him books or playing quiet games on a tablet. When Tommy felt up to it, they'd watch movies together. When Tommy was in too much pain to focus on anything, David would just sit there holding his hand. The nurses started calling David the dad, even though nobody had told them he was. They just assumed, and David never corrected them. On day 5, when Tommy was finally feeling a bit better, he asked the question Rebecca had been dreading. "Coach David, why are you always here? Don't you have to work?" David glanced at Rebecca. She gave him a small nod. "Not yet. Not until he was stronger." "I work from here," David said. "My laptop is my office. And besides, there's nowhere I'd rather be than hanging out with my favorite soccer player." "But what about your family? Don't they miss you?" David's voice was soft. "You are my family, Tommy." Tommy looked confused, but he was too tired to ask more questions. He fell asleep holding David's hand. That night, after Tommy was sleeping and Rebecca was getting ready to head home for a few hours of rest, the doctor pulled them both aside. "Tommy's doing much better. But his recovery is going to take time. Probably 6 to 8 weeks before he's back to normal. He'll need physical therapy. Someone will need to be with him most of the time for the first few weeks at home. The wound care alone is going to be intensive." Rebecca felt panic rise in her chest. "I can't take that much time off work. I'll lose my job. And I can't afford a private nurse." The doctor looked sympathetic but didn't have a solution. Rebecca excused herself and walked quickly to the bathroom, where she let herself cry for 5 minutes. Then she washed her face, straightened her scrubs, and went back out to face it all. David was waiting in the hallway. "I have an idea," he said, "and I want you to hear me out before you say no." Rebecca crossed her arms. "I'm listening. I have a house. About 20 minutes from here. It's big. Too big for one person, honestly. It has a guest wing with its own bathroom. It has a pool and a yard. And most importantly, it has a medical suite. I had it installed a few years ago when my mother was sick. Full hospital bed, equipment, everything you might need. David, I can't..." "Let me finish. You and Tommy could stay there during his recovery. You wouldn't have to worry about stairs or space or medical equipment. I have a housekeeper who could help. I'd stay in the main house and give you complete privacy. You could keep working your shifts and I could be there with Tommy when you're at the hospital. It's just temporary. Just until he's better? That's insane. I can't move into your house. Why not? Tommy needs a safe place to recover. You need help. I have the resources. It makes sense." "It makes sense for you to have your son under your roof, you mean?" Rebecca said, but there wasn't much bite in her voice. She was too tired, that too, David admitted. "But mainly I just want to help. Please, Rebecca, let me do this. Not because of the money or the house or any of that. Because Tommy is my son and you've been doing this alone for too long." Rebecca looked at him for a long moment. This man who 3 months ago had been a stranger. This man who'd shown up every single day since. This man who'd given his blood to save Tommy's life. "Okay," she said quietly, "but just until he's recovered. Then we go back to our normal life. Deal." 3 days later, Tommy was discharged from the hospital. David pulled up in a regular SUV, nothing flashy, to take them to his house. Tommy was still weak, moving slowly, but he was excited to get out of the hospital. When they pulled up to the property, Tommy's eyes went wide. "Coach David, you live here?" The house was beautiful, but not over the top. Modern but warm, set back on a few acres with tall trees. "I do. And you're going to stay here for a bit while you get better. Your mom too. Is that okay?" "This is the coolest thing ever," Tommy said, then winced and held his side. Moving still hurt. David had the guest wing set up perfectly. Tommy's room had been filled with books and games and art supplies, nothing expensive, just things an 8-year-old would enjoy. Rebecca's room was next door, comfortable and private. The medical suite had everything she might need to care for Tommy's wound. That first night, Rebecca tucked Tommy into bed in his new temporary room. He looked small in the big bed, but happy. "Mom, is Coach David rich?" Rebecca smiled. "Yeah, baby. He is. Is that why he has this big house?" "Yep, but he still coaches our soccer team, even though he's rich?" "He does." Tommy thought about that. "He's nice. I'm glad he's here helping us." "Me too, sweetie." "Me too." Over the next 2 weeks, they settled into a routine. Rebecca would work her shifts at the hospital. David would stay home with Tommy, working on his laptop while Tommy rested or did the physical therapy exercises the doctor prescribed. They'd play cards. They'd watch movies. They'd talk about everything and nothing. Tommy was getting stronger every day. The wound was healing well. His energy was coming back, and he was asking more questions about David. One afternoon, when Rebecca had the day off, she found David and Tommy in the backyard. Tommy was sitting on a lounge chair, and David was showing him something on his phone. "That's you?" Tommy asked, looking at a picture. "You look different. I was 20 years old there. That was a long time ago. Who's that lady with you?" David's voice was gentle. "That's someone very special. Someone I cared about a lot." Tommy looked closer. "She's pretty. She kind of looks like my mom did. In the pictures Aunt Becca has." Rebecca's heart stopped. She walked over slowly. Tommy was looking at the photo of David and Jennifer, the one from college. "Tommy," Rebecca said softly, sitting down next to him. "That's because that lady is your mom. Your birth mom, Jennifer." Tommy looked up at her, confused. "But you're my mom. I am, and I always will be. But Jennifer was your mom first. She had you. She loved you so much. And then when you were a baby, she died and I adopted you. Remember how we talked about that?" Tommy nodded slowly. "Yeah, but what does Coach David have to do with it?" Rebecca looked at David. He moved to sit on Tommy's other side. "Tommy," David said, his voice shaking slightly. "Jennifer was my girlfriend in college. We dated for a while. When I moved away, she found out she was going to have a baby. She tried to tell me, but I'd changed my number and she couldn't reach me. I never knew. If I had known, I would have been there." Tommy was quiet, processing. Then his eyes got very wide. "Wait, are you saying, are you my dad?" "Yes," David said simply. "I'm your father. I didn't know about you until a few months ago. That wrong text message your Aunt Becca sent me? That's how I found out. I saw your picture and something about you looked familiar. We did a test and it turned out you're my son." Tommy looked between them, his face going through about a dozen emotions. Confusion, shock, anger, fear, and then something that looked like hope. "Is that why you've been hanging around? Not because you wanted to coach soccer, but because I'm your kid?" "At first, yes," David admitted. "But Tommy, I stayed because of who you are. You're smart and kind and funny. You work hard. You care about your teammates. You love your aunt more than anything. You're an amazing kid and I'm proud to be your father. But you left my mom. You weren't there when she needed you." The words hit David like a punch, but he didn't flinch. "You're right. I wasn't, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I was young and stupid and selfish. I made terrible choices. But Tommy, I'm here now. And if you'll let me, I want to be your dad. Not to take anything away from Aunt Becca. She's your mom and she's done an incredible job raising you. But I want to be part of your family too. If you'll have me." Tommy was quiet for a long time. Rebecca held her breath. Finally, Tommy spoke. "When I was in the hospital, you stayed with me. Every day, I did. And you gave me your blood," Aunt Becca told me. "I did. And you promised you wouldn't leave. Do you keep your promises?" David's eyes filled with tears. "I do. Especially this one." Tommy looked at Rebecca. "Is it okay if he's my dad?" "Like for real?" Rebecca smiled through her own tears. "Yeah, baby. It's more than okay." Tommy turned back to David and studied his face for a moment. Then he said something that made David's heart nearly burst. "Okay. You can be my dad." David pulled Tommy into a careful hug, mindful of his healing incision. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me a chance." 3 months later, Tommy was fully recovered and back to playing soccer. David had officially moved his company headquarters to Austin. Rebecca had gone back to work but also started taking online classes to become a nurse practitioner, something she'd always dreamed of but never had the time or money for. They didn't all live together. Rebecca and Tommy had their own house, one that David helped them buy in a nice neighborhood near good schools. But David was there almost every day. Soccer practice, dinner, homework help, movie nights. They were a family. Not a traditional one, but a real one, built on second chances and hard work and love. On the anniversary of Jennifer's death, the three of them visited her grave. Tommy placed flowers on the stone and spoke softly. "Hi, Mom. I'm okay. I'm really happy. Aunt Becca is the best. And I have a dad now. His name is David. I think you would like him. He coaches my soccer team and he's teaching me about computers and he never misses anything important. I miss you, but I'm not sad anymore. Because I know you sent him to us even if it took a long time. We're a family now, all of us together. David and Rebecca stood on either side of Tommy, each with a hand on his shoulder. A family built from a wrong number, a twist of fate, and the courage to show up when it mattered most. Sometimes the best things in life come from the mistakes we make. And sometimes, when you finally come home, it's to a place you never knew you were searching for.